Today, the Standing Committee on Public Accounts will hear about probes into Eskom by the Special Investigating Units. The two oversight bodies will deliberate on the beleaguered power utility as rolling nationwide power cuts persist. This is the first of several meetings in Parliament just this week on the country's embattled utility. The SIU has been investigating a number of instances of suspected corruption at Eskom. Erin is live to us outside Parliament ahead of that Scopa meeting today. Erin, it's the latest in sort of a series of Scopa meetings, a series of public utterances. The former Eskom CEO, Andre de Ruyter, comes to mind and what he had to say about Eskom and corruption. Just give us a sense of, the context in which the Scopa meeting is happening today.
Yes, well, Michelle, as you said with Xoli just before 8 o'clock, we're going to bed with load shedding. We're arising in the morning with load shedding. The ongoing power crunch in South Africa, consequence of the beleaguered status of Eskom, now front of mind in the Public Accounts Standing Committee here in Parliament. Of course, it's the watchdog for government's finances. And if government is spending money on a utility which is ineffective in its work, that's something for Scopa to look into. Michelle, you've mentioned Andre de Ruyter of Eskom, formerly at least, and his allegations around corruption involving ministers he never named, even during a sitting before Parliament. He was expected to appear last week. That was pushed out, and Parliament released a statement providing the details on those several meetings this week, the first of which involves the SIU, that Special Investigating Unit, which can recover monies, Michelle, but as you and I know, and many of our viewers know too, it cannot land people behind bars or indeed fix Eskom to the point where we actually have a reliable source of power to support, the public's way of life, also industry and business. And so this first meeting will be on SIU investigations, also with input from the Hawks and the police on exactly what they're doing with the allegations de Ruyter made. We heard in a statement last week, Michelle, that the Public Enterprises Minister, Pravin Gordhan, was out of the country on official business. So was Sidney Mufamadi, the presidential advisor on power matters. And then, of course, we have our Minister of Eskom on top of that. Lord knows what they're doing to get to the bottom of what's wrong at Eskom and how to fix it. But that's the kind of thing we may well find out from 9 o'clock onwards today at the Marx building in Parliament.
Yeah, the issue of recovering monies. It's very interesting that the SIU, we were told in Feb this year, Erin, filed 162 reports on Eskom. That was between the period of 2001 and 2022. I wonder how much money is attached to that 162 reports that were found. And that's an important issue, right? Because when we talk about what the High Court in Pretoria last week said about exempting certain public facilities from load shedding, government says it can't afford to do that. But that corruption money would come in handy to do just that.
Quite right, and I don't have a figure for you on that, Michelle, but some of the other work the SIU has done has led to preservation orders, these in relation to contracts either at Kusile or Medupi, and orders granted in February of this year as well, that very same month that the presidency told Parliament about those 162 reports. Bear in mind, Michelle, 62 reports for the period from 2001 to 2023. There was a load of corruption going on at Eskom over a decade plus under former President Jacob Zuma and into now President Cyril Ramaphosa's administration. 162 reports from the SIU, considering the amount of evidence we had from various witnesses before now Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, is arguably quite a small figure. And as for the actual quantum of monies recovered, one doesn't know. I certainly don't, standing before you. But the difficulty with recovering monies lost to corruption is once it's gone, it's very hard to get it back. And so, as you say, government's in a position where it's not able to necessarily comply with a court order insisting that basic services to the civilians of this country who pay into the government fiscus through VAT and through other measures or depend on the state for social grants, the state is fighting that order because it may not have the means and it's lost a lot of money through corruption at the state utility Eskom. That's the kind of thing that we're likely to hear about in Scopa and certainly have heard about in the past.
Absolutely. Our viewers who are listening, our nurses in hospitals who are desperate for the lights to stay on so that they can do their jobs, our teachers in schools who need the lights to stay on so that we don't reverse the gains made since apartheid insofar as education is concerned. they will say, well, it's not my fault that you don't have the money now to do what the court has told you to do. So, Erin, tell us, for citizens, insofar as this Scopa meeting and the number of Scopa meetings that are set to take place this week on Eskom corruption, what can we hope to get out of it?
Sure, Michelle. I'm going to take a second to just try and think that through. I think hope is in very short supply, if you'll excuse the pun, when it comes to Eskom issues. And the difficulty here is that as much as Parliament and Scopa in particular fulfills an oversight role, the efficacy of Parliament as a measure to deal with service delivery has come under repeat scrutiny and question. What hope can we have? We can hope to gain some more facts. We can hope that people who've been elected through democratic processes, who sit in the Scopa committee and are going to be hauling officials from the likes of the SIU, Hawks and police, will provide strong and rigorous questions and seek sufficient and satisfactory answers from them. And more than that, we can hope for perhaps some clarity on whether or not Scopa is going to recommend that there is an institution, a body established to really get to the bottom of some of those allegations Durator made just days before he left office at Eskom. But that will be a process, Michelle, leading to another process. So in terms of hope, have patient hope for some very valuable and detailed facts today, and then perhaps some clarity on whether this process will lead to another process which might help us to understand what the dickens has been going on at Eskom and why you can't switch on a light, boil a pot of kettle for some water for your tea, or actually sit in a classroom or a hospital room with some lights on.
Erin Bates, live to us there in Parliament. Thanks very much indeed.